She married a vampire stranger to escape her abusive family. Didn't know he owned the entire city. Elara had always known the walls of her family's estate would never be kind to her. As a child, she had often dreamed of escaping, of running away to find a world beyond the reach of her father's cruelty. The estate, a grand mansion overlooking a dark forest, had always been both a prison and a fortress. Within its cold stone walls, Elara had been nothing more than an afterthought, a pawn in a game of power and influence that her father had played for years. Her father, once a nobleman in the kingdom, had long since lost his title and wealth due to his endless greed and cruelty. The once proud figure of power was now a broken man, angry and desperate. He ruled his family with an iron fist, and Elara was his greatest target. Her mother had been a quiet, distant presence, too afraid to stand up to her husband. And then there was Elara's older brother, the one who had taken on the role of the perfect heir. He had inherited their father's coldness, his ambition, and his lust for control. She had never been able to earn her father's approval, and her brother made sure she felt the weight of that every day. It was late one night when Elara stood at the edge of the balcony, staring out at the distant lights of the city. A sudden knock on her door startled her, and she quickly turned away, wiping away the tears that had formed without her realizing it. "Enter," she said softly, her voice betraying her unease. The door opened, and her maid Thalia stepped inside with a hurried look on her face. "My lady, you must come with me. There's someone here to see you." Elara frowned, confused. Who would be here at this hour?
"You'll see," Thalia said, glancing over her shoulder nervously.
"Please, come quickly." Puzzled, Elara followed Thalia through the darkened halls of the mansion. The servants had long since retired for the night, and the only sound was the soft echo of their footsteps on the marble floors. As they reached the front door, Elara stopped short. Standing in the doorway was a figure cloaked in black. The moonlight caught the edges of his cloak, casting long shadows behind him. He was tall, with an air of mystery about him. His face was partially hidden, but Elara could see the glint of something unusual in his eyes that seemed too deep, too ancient for a mortal. "I am Lorien," the man said, his voice soft but commanding. "I have come to offer you an escape." Elara blinked, taken aback by the suddenness of his words. Escape? From what? From her family? From her life? She had long wished for such an opportunity, but something about this man felt different. Dangerous, even. "I don't understand," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "You need not understand just yet," Lorien replied, his tone calm and reassuring. "You need only trust me. I offer you freedom, a life far from this place. A chance to leave behind the chains that bind you."
Elara hesitated.
Her heart raced at the thought of freedom. She had dreamed of it for so long. But this man, this stranger, was offering her a way out. Who was he? What did he want in return? "Why me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lorien's gaze softened, and he took a step closer, though he never crossed the threshold of the door. "Because I see the pain in your eyes, Elara. I see the struggle. You deserve a life beyond this mansion, beyond the cruelty of your family." His words struck her deeply. For the first time in years, someone had seen her, truly seen her, without the walls of hatred or judgment that her father and brother had always placed in her path. "I don't know you," Elara said, stepping back slightly. "Why should I trust you?" Lorien smiled, a faint but knowing smile that seemed to hold centuries of secrets. "You don't have to trust me, Elara. You simply have to decide if you want to leave this place and never return."
Elara felt a strange tug at her heart.
Could it really be that simple? Could she really escape this cage? Her eyes darted back to the dark hallways of the mansion, where her family waited, where her father's harsh voice would soon demand her presence, where her brother's cruel gaze would mock her every decision. Could she truly leave them behind? Lorien's voice broke through her thoughts. "There is a world beyond these walls, a world where you can be free, a world where you don't have to fear the ones who should love you." His words resonated deep within her, and for the first time Elara felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this was her chance, her only chance to break free. But fear still held her in place. "I don't know what to do," she confessed, her voice shaky. Lorien stepped forward, his movements graceful and deliberate. He was close now, his presence overwhelming. She could feel the pull of his power, something ancient and untouchable. He reached out, gently cupping her chin with his fingers, lifting her face to meet his gaze.
You don't have to know everything, Elara.
You only have to trust in the promise of something better. Her heart skipped a beat. For a moment it felt as though the entire world had stilled. There was something in his eyes, something that told her this was her chance, her only chance. "What do you ask of me in return?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Lorien's smile returned, warmer this time, but still shadowed by an air of mystery. "Nothing. Not yet. You will owe me nothing but your trust. In time, that trust will lead to something greater." Elara felt a shiver run through her at his words. She didn't fully understand them, but something in the way he said it made her believe him. The door creaked slightly, the wind howling outside, as if urging her to make a decision. With one last glance at her family's home, Elara turned to Lorien. "I'll go with you," she said softly, her voice filled with both fear and hope. Lorien's eyes glinted with satisfaction. He held out his hand to her. "Then come. The city awaits." Without another word, Elara stepped into the night, leaving the only life she had ever known behind. She didn't know what awaited her in the future, but as she walked beside this stranger, this vampire lord, she felt the weight of her old life begin to fade. For the first time, she was free. But as the mansion disappeared into the distance, Elara couldn't shake the feeling that her journey had only just begun. And with every step she took away from her old life, she could feel the eyes of her family, her father, her brother, watching from the shadow. Elara's heart raced as she walked beside Lorien, his steady presence and unshakable comfort amidst the uncertainty swirling in her chest. The city he led her to was not what she had imagined. It was vast and ancient, its streets winding and alive with an energy that pulsed through the very stones beneath her feet. Lanterns flickered in the darkness, casting long shadows that danced like whispers in the wind. The city was a realm all its own, far removed from the kingdom she had once known. There were no grand mansions here, no pomp or wealth to boast of. Instead, there was a quiet, eerie elegance to it, streets lined with towering buildings of dark stone, their windows glowing faintly with a strange, otherworldly light. Elara couldn't help but stare in awe. The people who walked the streets seemed ordinary at first glance, yet there was something different about them. Their eyes held secrets, and their movements were almost too graceful, too controlled. It was as if they too were bound by something unseen, something that kept them tethered to this place in ways that Elara couldn't yet understand. "Where are we going?" Elara asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as they passed through a narrow alleyway. She kept her eyes forward, but she couldn't help glancing around at the shadows that seemed to move on their own. "To my home," Lorien replied, his voice calm and deep, like the night itself. He didn't seem bothered by the strange atmosphere of the city. In fact, he seemed perfectly at ease, as if this place was where he belonged. Elara swallowed hard, trying to shake the unease creeping up her spine. She had left everything behind, her old life, her family, her home. But what was this place? What was Lorien's role here? And what kind of man, or creature, had she truly married? Lorien stopped in front of a massive wrought-iron gate, and Elara nearly gasped. The gate was intricately designed, with patterns of swirling vines and mysterious symbols carved into it. It looked like something out of a forgotten legend, a barrier between worlds. "Welcome," Lorien said softly, his hand brushing against the cold metal of the gate. The moment he touched it, the gate creaked open with an eerie yet welcoming sound. Beyond it, Elara could see the towering silhouette of a mansion, a dark palace of sorts. It seemed to rise out of the shadows, its high walls stretching toward the sky, as though it had always been there, waiting for her arrival. She stepped inside, her feet heavy as if the very ground beneath her was pulsing with life. The mansion was just as imposing on the inside as it was on the outside. Dark wood lined the walls, and the air was thick with the scent of incense and something else. Something unfamiliar, almost like the earth after a storm. The grand hall stretched endlessly before her, lit by flickering torches that cast long, twisted shadows on the walls. "This is incredible," Elara whispered, her voice filled with awe. Lorien nodded, his expression unreadable. "It is my home, and it will be yours as long as you wish." Elara didn't know what to say to that. The truth was she was both terrified and mesmerized by the grandeur of this place. But as much as the mansion was beautiful, it was also foreboding. It felt like a place of power, a power that was both ancient and unyielding. It seemed to hum with an energy that Elara couldn't yet comprehend. As they walked deeper into the mansion, Alara's mind raced with questions. She had always felt like an outsider in her own home, but here she felt even more so. This place was like nothing she had ever known, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong. Lorien led her into a vast sitting room, where a fire crackled softly in a large stone fireplace. The flames cast a warm glow across the room, but the shadows they created seemed to dance in strange ways. There was something unsettling about it. Elara couldn't quite place it, but she knew she was no longer in the world she had once known. "Sit," Lorien instructed, gesturing to a velvet armchair by the fire. His voice was gentle but firm, commanding, as if it had never known anything else. Elara hesitated for only a moment before she sank into the chair. The weight of the moment pressed down on her, and she couldn't help but feel like she was on the verge of something monumental. Lorien took a seat opposite her, his eyes never leaving hers. There was a silence between them that felt heavy, thick with unspoken things. "I know you have questions," Lorien said after a moment, his voice low and steady. "And I will answer them, but not all at once. Some things must be understood in time." Elara nodded slowly, her hands resting in her lap as she tried to steady her racing thoughts. What was she supposed to ask? Where did she begin? The truth was, she didn't even know what she wanted to know. But one thing was certain. She had to understand this place. She had to understand him. "Why did you choose me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why did you offer me this freedom?" Lorien's gaze softened for a moment, but his expression quickly turned guarded. "You are not the first to be offered this choice, Elara. I have done this before." Alara's brow furrowed. "Done what before?" "Given people like you a chance to escape," he replied, his voice tinged with something like sorrow. "You were not the first to see an opportunity and take it. There are others who have walked this path before you. But your reasons, they are different."
Elara swallowed.
"What do you mean?" Lorien's eyes seemed to search hers, as if weighing the truth of her words.
You come from a family that has bound you in chains of cruelty.
You carry the weight of your past with you. But that weight, it does not define you.
Elara was silent for a moment, her thoughts a whirlwind.
What did he know of her pain, of the abuse, the isolation, the constant fear that had ruled her life? He didn't know. He couldn't know. But she had no choice but to believe him. "Then what happens now?" she asked, her voice shaky. "What do I do here?" Lorien leaned forward slightly, his eyes never leaving hers. "You are free to live as you wish, but there is something more to this city. A darkness that runs through its veins, a curse that binds it. And you, Elara, are the key."
"The key!" Elara repeated, her pulse quickening.
"Yes," Lorien said softly. "The city is under my control, but not entirely. There is a force, ancient and powerful, that keeps it bound. And you, your bloodline, is connected to that force." Elara felt her stomach churn. She wanted to protest, to deny the truth of what he was saying. But the more she listened, the more it felt like she was being pulled into something much larger than herself. Something she didn't understand, but had no choice but to accept. "But how can I help?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lorien's gaze softened, his lips curling into a faint smile. "You are more than you think, Elara. In time you will understand your place in all of this." Elara couldn't help but shiver. There was something about his words, about the way he looked at her, that made her feel both powerful and small at the same time. The city, the mansion, and Lorien himself, they all seemed to hold secrets that she wasn't yet ready to face. But one thing was clear. She was no longer just a girl running from her past. She had become part of something much darker. And though she didn't know what the future held, she could feel the pull of it deep inside her, the pull of the curse, the power, the darkness that surrounded her. Elara stood by the fire, her thoughts a swirl of confusion, fear, and curiosity. The shadows in the room seemed to grow longer, stretching toward her as though they were alive, pulling her into a story she didn't fully understand. Lorien had led her into his world, a world full of secrets, power, and dark forces. But there was something more, something she could feel deep in her bones. The city, the mansion, and even the very air around her were all connected by something much larger. She couldn't help but think back to the conversation with Lorien and the man named Caden, who had appeared so suddenly, his words heavy with meaning. "She's the only one who can stop it," Caden had said.
Stop what? What was this curse that seemed to bind the very fabric of the city?
And why had Lorien brought her here? Her mind buzzed with the questions, but the more she thought about it, the more the pieces seemed to slip away. Lorien had told her that her bloodline was connected to the curse. But how could that be? She had never heard of anything like that in her family. The only thing she knew for certain was that she had no choice but to find out. Lorien had been kind to her in his own way, but he was distant, holding something back. She could feel it, like an invisible barrier between them. He had offered her freedom, a chance to escape her past, but what if that freedom came at a cost, one that she wasn't ready to pay? Elara shook her head, trying to focus on the present. The city outside was silent now, the sounds of life swallowed by the night. In the distance, the towers of the city loomed like silent sentinels, their dark shapes barely visible in the moonlight. It was a strange, unsettling sight, a place that seemed both beautiful and terrifying at once. "Are you lost in thought again?" Lorien's voice broke through her reverie. She turned to see him standing in the doorway, his eyes studying her with an intensity that sent a chill down her spine. "I'm trying to understand," Elara said, her voice small. "This curse, my bloodline. I don't understand how I'm connected to it." Lorien's gaze softened slightly, though there was still something guarded in his expression. "You have questions, I know, but some things must remain hidden for now. You are not ready to learn everything." Elara's frustration bubbled to the surface. "How can I be ready if you won't tell me anything? I can't live in the dark forever, Lorien." "You brought me here, and now I need answers." Lorien took a step closer, his presence like a heavy weight pressing down on her. His eyes softened, and for a moment, Elara could see the flicker of something deep inside him, a pain that mirrored her own. "You are right," he said quietly. "But there are forces at work here that even I do not fully understand. The curse that binds this city is old, older than either of us. It has taken root in the very soul of this place, and only someone with your blood can break it."
Elara's heart beat faster.
"What do you mean by my blood?" Lorien looked away for a moment, his expression distant. "Your ancestors made a pact long ago, one that tied your bloodline to the city. A price was paid for power, for control over this land, and now that price must be paid again. Only you can decide whether to break the curse or allow it to continue." Elara's mind raced. "But how do I do that?" "How can I break a curse that's been in place for centuries?" Lorien's eyes met hers again, his expression unreadable. "The key lies within you, Elara. But first you must understand what it truly means to be a part of this city, to accept the weight of its history. The curse is not just a spell or a dark magic, it is the very essence of this place. It is bound to the land, the people, and to me."
Elara's stomach tightened. "What do you mean, bound to you?" Lorien stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "I was born into this curse, Elara. I am the keeper of it."
"My blood, too, is tied to the land, to the city. And while I have power, I cannot free myself from it. I have tried many times, but the curse is too strong. It has kept me here, trapped in this cycle. Elara swallowed hard, the weight of his words sinking in. You want me to free you? Lorien shook his head. No, not just me. The city, its people, and the very land itself are bound by this curse. My freedom means nothing if the curse remains, but I can't do it alone. And neither can you. Together, we may have a chance. Elara felt a surge of emotions, confusion, fear, and a strange sense of responsibility. The man she had married, the stranger who had offered her freedom, was not what he seemed. He was a prisoner in his own right, bound by a curse that had ruled his life for centuries. And now, it seemed, she was the only one who could help him, and the city. But why me? Elara asked, her voice shaky. Why did you bring me here? I don't even know how I can help. Lorien reached out and gently touched her hand, his fingers cold but steady. You have power in your blood, Elara. Power you don't even realize. And while I cannot force you to face it, I can help you understand it. In time, you will see. You are the key to breaking this cycle. Elara pulled her hand back, her thoughts swirling. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking into an abyss she couldn't fully comprehend. But something deep inside her, something that had been buried for so long, whispered that this was her purpose. This was why she had been brought here. Why she had escaped her past. I don't know what to do, she confessed, her voice small. I'm scared. Lorien's gaze softened, and for a moment, Elara saw something like vulnerability in his eyes. I understand your fear. I have lived with this curse for so long that I have forgotten what it feels like to be free. But you are not alone in this. I will help you, Elara. We will break this curse together. Elara nodded slowly, her heart heavy with uncertainty. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure. She couldn't turn back now. The path ahead was dark, and the weight of the curse threatened to crush her, but there was no other choice. She had to move forward. The sound of footsteps broke through her thoughts, and she turned to see Caden entering the room. His eyes were serious, his expression unreadable. We need to talk, he said, his voice low and urgent. Lorien's expression hardened at the sight of Caden, but he nodded. What is it? Caden looked at Elara, his gaze calculating. The curse is waking Lorien. It is growing stronger. And Elara, she's in danger. The longer she stays here, the more the curse will bind her. Elara felt a chill run through her at his words. Danger. What did that mean for her? Lorien stepped forward, his voice steady but filled with an edge of concern. What are you saying, Caden? Caden's eyes flickered with a mixture of fear and frustration. The curse is not just a spell, it's a living thing, a force that feeds on those it binds. Elara's bloodline is the last piece it needs to fully awaken. If she doesn't confront it soon, it will consume her.
Elara's heart raced as the weight of Caden's words sank in.
Consume me? She whispered. What do you mean? Lorien turned to her, his expression filled with urgency. It means you must make a choice, Elara. You must face the curse head-on, or you will be consumed by it. Her mind reeled, the fear of the unknown threatening to overwhelm her. But somewhere deep inside, Elara knew that the only way forward was to face what lay ahead, to confront the curse that had been woven into her very being. The mansion groaned, as though it were alive, responding to the curse that had stirred within it. Elara's heart raced as the ground beneath her feet trembled, and the flickering lights in the room dimmed. The low, guttural rumbling continued, growing louder like the heartbeat of the very land itself. Lorien, his expression hardening, moved quickly to her side. He reached for her hand, his touch cold and reassuring like a lifeline in the storm. We need to move. Now, Elara, her mind a whirlwind of confusion and fear, nodded. She had no choice but to follow. The curse, the one Lorien had spoken of, was no longer a distant threat. It had awoken, and it was reaching for her, its hunger growing with each passing moment. Caden, who had been standing silently by the door, moved toward them, his face pale. "We don't have much time," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "The curse has begun to consume the city. It will not stop until it has claimed what it needs."
What does it need? Alara asked, her voice trembling.
Caden's gaze flickered toward Lorien before meeting Alara's. "You, Alara. Your bloodline is the key to its power. It's been waiting for this moment. The moment when you would step into the heart of the curse." Lorien pulled Alara closer, his grip firm but gentle. "There is no escaping it now. You are bound to this place, to its fate. But you can still choose how this ends." Alara's mind reeled. She had never asked for any of this. She had come here for freedom, to escape the prison of her family's cruelty, and now she found herself at the center of something much darker, something that threatened not only her life, but the very city itself. How had it all come to this? How had her bloodline become the key to something so terrible? "What do I do?" she whispered, her voice small, as if speaking too loudly might make the curse stronger. Lorien's eyes softened, and for the first time, Alara saw the depth of the burden he carried. "You have the power to break the curse, Alara, but it will come at a cost." The weight of his words hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. Alara felt her knees grow weak as the realization sank in. The curse was not just a shadow lurking in the corners of the city. It was a force, a living, breathing entity, and it had found its way to her. It had chosen her. "I don't understand," Alara said, her voice strained. How can I break something so powerful?" "You have the power of your ancestors within you," Lorien said softly, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "The bloodline that connects you to this city is not a curse, it is a gift. You must tap into that power, Alara. Only then can you destroy the curse that has bound this place for centuries."
Alara shook her head, feeling the weight of the city's history pressing down on her.
I'm not strong enough!
She whispered, the fear in her chest rising like a tidal wave.
I don't know how to do this!
"You are stronger than you think," Lorien said, his voice firm. "You have already come this far. You've faced the darkness, and now it's time to face what lies within you." A cold wind swept through the mansion, rattling the windows as the rumbling outside grew louder. Alara's heart pounded in her chest. She couldn't ignore it any longer. She couldn't hide from the truth of what was happening. The curse was not just a force of magic. It was a part of her, a part of her bloodline, and only she could end it. "I'm ready," Alara said, her voice trembling but resolute. "Tell me what to do." Lorien nodded, his eyes filled with both sadness and pride. "We must go to the heart of the city, where the curse was born. There is a place beneath the city, hidden from the world above. It is there that the curse took root, and it is there that you must confront it." Alara took a deep breath, gathering her courage. She had come to this city to escape her past, to find a new life, but now she understood that her fate was tied to the city's. She was not just a bystander in this story, she was the key to its ending, and whatever it took, she would break the curse and free the city, even if it meant sacrificing everything she had left. The journey to the heart of the city was unlike anything Alara had ever experienced. The streets were empty, as if the city itself had abandoned its people in their time of need. The air was thick with tension, as though every breath she took carried the weight of the curse pressing down on her. Lorien and Caden led her through the labyrinthine streets, their faces grim as they navigated the darkened alleys. The city, once full of life, now felt like a ghost town, a place abandoned by hope. As they neared the center of the city, the air grew colder, the shadows deeper, and Alara could feel the pull of the curse growing stronger. They reached a large, crumbling building, its once grand doors now rotted with age. The faintest glow of light filtered through the cracks in the walls, casting eerie shadows on the ground. "This is it," Lorien said, his voice low. "The heart of the curse." Alara stepped forward, her heart racing. She didn't know what to expect, but she knew that this was the moment when everything would change. She had no choice but to face the curse head-on, to confront the darkness that had bound her bloodline for centuries. Inside, the air was thick with magic, the walls seemingly alive with ancient power. In the center of the room stood a large stone altar, covered in symbols Alara didn't recognize. The room pulsed with an energy that made her skin crawl, and as she stepped closer to the altar, she felt a presence watching her. It was the curse, she realized. It was waiting for her.
You must stand here, Lorien said, guiding her to the altar. The curse is tied to this place, to this altar.
If you are to break it, you must face it here.
Elara's pulse quickened as she looked around the room, the weight of what she was about to do settling heavily on her shoulders.
The curse was not just a force outside of her. It was a part of her bloodline, and she could feel it calling to her, demanding her attention.
I'm ready,
Elara whispered, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. Lorien and Caden stepped back, giving her space, but their eyes never left her. They were there, waiting, watching, trusting her to do what must be done. Elara closed her eyes, focusing on the power within her, the power she had inherited from her ancestors. She could feel it deep within her veins, like a fire that had been waiting to burn. She reached for it, drawing it to the surface, and as she did, the room around her seemed to shift. The shadows grew darker, the air heavier, and the energy in the room became almost unbearable. For a moment, Elara felt like she was drowning, the weight of the curse threatening to crush her. But then, she remembered why she had come here. She had come to break the curse, to free herself and the city from its grip. And with that thought, she found her strength. The power inside her surged, and as it did, she felt the curse begin to unravel. The darkness in the room seemed to writhe, to resist, but Elara held firm. She would not let it win. With a final surge of energy, she unleashed the power within her, and the room exploded in light. The walls trembled, the floor cracked, and the curse, this dark force that had held the city captive for so long, was broken. Elara collapsed to her knees, exhausted but victorious. The light around her faded, and as she looked up, she saw the room in a new light, clean, pure, and free of the curse's hold. Lorien and Caden rushed to her side, their faces filled with relief and awe. "You did it," Lorien said, his voice thick with emotion. "You freed us all." Elara looked around, her heart still racing. The curse was gone, but the city was forever changed. And so was she.